Thank you, Nancy. So before we start the Q&A session, I would like to introduce Nancy and our group who is a sponsor of this event. So I'm Hirosa, the founder of the Landscape of Dreamers. We are the developing platform to help the youth know more about their favorite things through our platform and content and provide them with opportunities for implementation. Today is actually our first time to hold a lecture. And Dr. Nancy Lee is a director of product, a mentor, and a YouTuber. She was the youngest engineering PhD, then transitioned to a product manager. Within 4 years, she was promoted to the director of product at a top family business in the world. She had held leadership roles at Verizon and Shell Oil. She is also an alumnus of Boston University and MIT. Her goal is to help highly motivated individuals transition to product management and help them to get the compensation they want. You can check out Dr. Lee's weekly video at her YouTube channel, and I would put them in the chatting place.
Awesome. Hi, Harold. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone who joined right now. So I know lots of you guys asked lots of questions before we start this webinar, and I am going to share my screens and go through those questions one by one. I also want you guys to directly ask questions when you go off the camera, and feel free to ask questions and let me know what specific questions you have. I want to make it very casual, and the goal is to make sure all of you guys after this talk understand that the product management is the right career path for you. If it is the right career path, what can you do? How can you get you guys prepared? Okay, so let me do this. I am going to share my screen very quickly. Awesome. Okay, great. The first today is about Ask Dr. Nancy Lee. Feel free to ask your questions directly on the chat as well, because we're also monitoring on YouTube as we are speaking in this live event. Everyone's comment on YouTube will be monitored by Harosa as well. Great, awesome, cool. All right, so yeah, Harosa, feel free to ask any questions. Maybe you can get started.
Yeah, so now I'll start to ask the first question. It's about the product manager. So what is a day in life as a product manager?
Very cool. All right, so a day in life as a product manager, in general, the way we describe product management's responsibilities come from in 3 phases. Is that usually product managers, the phase 1 is do ideation, and phase 2 is working with engineers to build product, and phase 2 product launch. For different phases, the roles and the day-to-day life is slightly different as a product manager. For example, as product manager in the initial ideation phase, you're mainly doing ideation with your own team in terms of your data scientist team or your marketing team to understand what's a problem you need to solve. And in addition, working with corporate strategy team who came up with a high level definition where you need to go. That's in the initial phase. But as a product manager, most of the time we're working with engineers, which build a product, the middle part. The day-to-day look like as a product manager, actually, when you start to build product, you spend about 5 hours per day to attend meetings. To be honest, we attend lots of meetings, but the day-to-day usually work like this in terms of working with engineers. We will start in terms of talking to engineers through the agile development process, go through some like sprint planning. So I have a separate video talk about the agile process. But here we do this relatively quickly in terms of working with engineers. That we go through user stories and do daily stand-up to see any challenges they have, and engineers will ask questions. And then we continue to join different meetings that designers will have questions for product managers, or we go through the product user stories with our team members. And the whole day basically composed with meetings, answer questions for engineers. And towards the end of the day, hopefully we will have saved some time to laser focus on the next version of the product. How can we improve the product and user feedback so that we can continue to build the product roadmap? Then the day in life as a product manager will move to the next session, which is phase 3 about product launch. And our day-to-day will be shift. Of course, still have like 5 hours meeting per day, but the people who work more is more sales and marketing, and everybody will focus on how can we bring the product to the hands of customers and what's the best way we're able to help them to use our product and provide the right feedback, and hopefully eventually quickly open the wallet to pay for our product. So that's what's a day in life as a product manager. Feel free to ask any follow-up questions, guys.
So sounds like the becoming a product manager needs to like a great communication skill and also a good ability to receive the response from the user and produce some new ideas. So, what's actually the skill sets that do you think are required for a product manager career?
All right, so we move to the next part regarding the skill sets, right? Great. So let me unshare when I answer the skill set questions. So regarding the skill set, I think product managers mainly have the key 3 skill set, which is the number 1, negotiation and influence skill set. Because as a product manager on our day-to-day basis, and usually we will directly answer, hold on, let me pin myself. All right, so answer the question this way. So on YouTube, great. So as a product manager, the negotiation and influence is being used every day, because usually when we go into different kind of meetings or working with engineers or designers, people will have pushback, have different ideas, and product manager is perceived as a quarterback. If you imagine as a football game, we're the ones who behind and direct different teams go towards the same direction and eventually like land a score and hit a goal. And in order to convince everybody going towards the same direction, and negotiation and influence skills is critical to get into the next level. The second part regarding the key skill set as a product manager is the storytelling skills. Storytelling skills is the place we are going to set our vision and align where everybody is going. So think about this. If you are doing the Dragon Boat like festival, so in Boston we do this a lot, and I think people still trying to practice even if during COVID for Dragon Boat, right? As the product manager, we need to make sure how would you align all the people on the Dragon Boat going towards the same direction. That's when we set the vision. So setting vision by yourself is easy, but how would you be able to influence other people to go to the same direction with you, which is through the storytelling skills, which means usually as a product manager, we need to paint a right vision for all the team members to follow us and hopefully execute the same vision together. So telling those stories and bring them on the same boat with you is the second most important skill set. And the third part is the public speaking skills. I made a YouTube video about how to improve English and the importance of public speaking. You guys can check it out as well. So regarding the public speaking skills as a product manager, it's very critical, which is also something will get you promoted in the long run as well. Because as a product manager, when we do product launch, we need to give lots of like speeches to our senior executives, convince the internal stakeholders to give you the funding to build and launch a product. So when you actually launch a product, you also need to engage with external parties when you launch, such as the PR resources or speaker conferences talking about your product. Public speaking skills is the key for you to sell your vision. Build a fantastic product is step 1, but having someone else to be able to influence by you and use your product will come through those storytelling skills and public speaking skills.
So what do we need to do to launch a product?
Great, good question. So let me share this question. So Harosa, your voice is a little bit low. Maybe you can increase your microphone a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So her question is, yeah, we'll have here some noise and make sure we are the only person who is speaking here. So her question is, what do you need to do to launch a product? All right, so let me unshare so that you can look at me when we speak. All right, so what you need to do to launch a product is a great question. And actually there are like 3 key questions everybody need to answer before you even launch a product. So step 1 is, what's the goal of your product? There are 3 different ways you can define the goals. And usually in the industry, there's 3 ways. The goal of your product in general is return on investment, generating revenue. Or the second reason you launch a product is you want to drive customer adoption, such as Facebook, TikTok, right? All those companies or product initially, when they launch the product, it's drive massive adoption, and then they execute like ads or commercialization strategy on your product, so that their goal is to drive user adoption. The third part, people might thinking about launching a product is mainly to enter a new market in collaboration with other product in the product portfolio. For example, so in Verizon, when we launched Smart Cities product, and that product is in the same product portfolio with 5G and edge computing product, the purpose of launching the Smart Cities product is new market entry. And how can we go into a new market, which means we're not thinking about generating lots of revenue in year 1. We don't want to have like 1,000 cities use our product in year 1. Our goal is, how can we open the doors to enter new markets so that the entire product portfolio can follow the path to enter this like new smart city space, right? So after you define the goal of launching a product, and then it's easier to understand what it takes to launch a product and what's the requirement to launch a product, right? So let's assume your goal is to generate revenue, and usually the way we predefine is the right time to launch a product or not is, do we have early adopters who did pilot with you? Usually we do some pilot to see anybody want to use it, they want to pay for it. There is certain type of indication from end users. They will come up and say, yes, I like to use this product and I like to do this free pilot. And sometime in the future, in the near future, they will convert to be a paid customer, right? So if we're able to see certain kind of indication, customers are willing to pay, put down some credit card, and after some like free trial period, or someone even without free trial, they already decide to pay you, that's the best indication that you're able to launch a product in terms of revenue focus goal. And same thing as if you want your product is focused on driving adoptions of like number of users, before you launch, you need to test out in a small group of users and see, is there any stickiness to your product? Do people want to use your product a lot? And the specific indication you can tell, wow, this product is kind of picking like traffic, then it's the right time to launch a product. That's in general when we define when to launch a product and whether it's the right product to launch. Does this answer your questions? And anybody can just jump in and ask any follow-up questions, by the way.
I think if sometimes you got conflicts with other people in your group, like you think the idea works, but other people think it's not works, and maybe you test some of the like.
Can you speak louder? Rosa, you're
okay,
very, okay. Yeah, speak louder, please.
So when you have an idea as a new product, and maybe you do some testing, or other people tell you it does not work. So will you keep your product or just choose another way?
Good question. And first of all, we need to define who are the other people telling you your product doesn't work. If other people came from the end user, if the end user said, I don't want to use your product, this doesn't work, and you will listen to the end user start to pivot. You figure out how to better solve the problem for your end users. If the other people in this case said your product doesn't work, could be your internal stakeholders, and they are not speaking in front of customers, they are more speaking in terms of internally. For example, the politics, there's politics everywhere. Once you guys start to work, you understand, right? People say your product doesn't work, maybe because this politics, they say it doesn't work, or because they do not have enough funding to fund it, then they say it doesn't work. If internal stakeholders, I will start to think about, well, what's the true meaning behind it? Why they said it doesn't work? Maybe it was not because my product doesn't work, was because there's other politics, other resources. And in that case, I'm not going to change my product. I'm going to understand why and what it takes for other stakeholders to change their ideas and go into this journey with me.
So sometimes as a product manager, maybe you need to make a Gantt graph or something to manage other group mates' time. And if you make the work so hurry, they may think yeah, you maybe you're not good enough to manage their time. So how do you think as a product manager, we can maybe manage the process, the time of the product better?
Let me, one sec, let me ping myself. Let me recap your question. So you're saying when we work with designers and engineers and other people work on this together, they might say that their time wasn't worth spending, and how would you make sure you're saving time and actually let the team spend the time on the right thing to do? Is that your question?
Uh, it's a part of my question, and also I want to
Can you
know.
repeat?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. It's also a part of that I'm curious about, and maybe how to make the time management of the product of every mate of the product to be faithful, maybe just not so hurry or not so slow, like that.
Okay, so basically it's more like time management of your product.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me answer this question regarding time management of the product. Is that again, there are like three phases go into this. And first of all, regarding the time, externally, we need to understand where other competitors are doing. Is this the right market environment for us to rush through certain product launches? And for example, during COVID, if this is a technology or certain product, it's help you to track down the COVID patients much faster, right? Or being able to quickly diagnose or test COVID patients. And there is a demand and there's a time sensitive in the entire market that needing this kind of product. And in that case, we will accelerate the product development, product launch phase, and even do some like early test and with selected group of people, of course, follow all the like FDA and requirements. But in that case, the motivation is launch a product faster. That's the first part. And the second part is that look at what's internally, right? And on your roadmap, what is the most critical items that is going to move the needle? There are, let's say, 80-20 rules. Maybe there's some specific product feature with 20% of product feature that can solve 80% of the customer problems. And in that case, instead of moving things too fast or too slow, we need to reprioritize product roadmap to figure out what are the 20% product features 80% of customers want. And in that case, it's not about fast or slow, it's about did I put the eggs in the right basket or not, put my time investment worthwhile. And in that case, is more towards prioritization instead of time management. And the third part is that when we really talk about the time management, assuming you already pre-identified this is the right feature to build, 80% customers want it. So when you build it regarding time management is towards how would you be able to clearly communicate your user stories? Did you write the requirement clearly? And did you have the Scrum Master to support you to execute your vision or not? In that case, you're improving the efficiency of your customers, in this case, internal customers, your team together.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's so my problem. And I just so a question in the chatting room is by Selena. Is about how can I know it is a policy problem instead of product problem?
Great question. And once you start to work, you will start to feel like what's going on about people around you. That's what I said, negotiation influence as one of the key skill set for product managers. As a product manager, we should be able to read people to begin with. If you guys haven't picked up the skill set, I recommend you guys to take some classes or learn about reading people. So once you, for step one is you should start to read people, what they mean behind what they said. And step two is collect some facts. For example, if people said your product doesn't work, is there any specific data or customer user feedback and tell you nobody want to use it, right? So you collect some fact to understand. If the fact says customers likes it, but there's some other reason wasn't documented through the customer's interview, then you understand something must go wrong within the internal politics. And the third part, what I recommend everyone to do is build your allies. And sometimes it's hard to guess what they really meant. They say something, they mean something else. But if you have allies within your company, then you ask your allies, hey, someone told me this. That sounds weird. I feel like it's off, but I don't know what the truth behind it, what that person wants, right? Then your ally would usually be able to see things in different perspective because your ally is likely to be in a different department or related to you, so they can see the same thing through the different angle and tell you what's the right reason, where the politics came from.
It's my so if I wanna be a product manager, how can it works?
Oh, one sec. I muted you by accident. Can you ask your question again?
Okay, so if I wanna be a product manager, how can it works for a fresh graduate?
Great question. This is actually one of the questions we had earlier. Let me share my screen so that everyone can read this question. It's about fresh graduate, right? So if you can see my screen right now, it said, how can a fresh graduate become a product manager with a path to PM? This is a great question because honestly, product management has become one of the hardest jobs out there. But I do believe that there's a lot of like new things, new activities fresh graduate can do to become a product manager. And first of all, to answer this question regarding how can a fresh graduate become a PM, and step one is, first of all, collect the right experience that related to product management through your project or internship. if you haven't done any internship right now, I recommend all of you guys to figure out, start to apply for internship. And actually right now is the best time to apply for internship for the next summer. Lots of companies will start to open as new enrollment for their internship. So once you start to do internship regarding to PM, you'll gain your experience. But here's the thing, because PM nowadays is the hottest job everybody want to get recently. It's compared with much harder than consulting or investment banking. Given it's very competitive, maybe not everybody can even get an intern experience as a PM. What you can do is you should do some side project outside of school. For example, you can attend some hackathon. Several of my videos mention examples of hackathons, what does it look like, and you guys should check it out regarding how to become a PM with no prior experience, which I talk about the hackathon experience, right? So in those hackathon experience, it's free to join, or maybe you pay like, I don't know, $20 for the registration. Once you join, you work with a team of people to build a product in a short amount of time. Let's say usually like 54 hours and 48 hours. And during this experience, you're required to identify problem, talk to customers, and build some solution very quickly. And in this case, the solution is more MVP, minimum viable product. It's not real product, it's more initial version of the product. And then through all those experience, you're able to have something that you can put on your resume, saying that I have done something similar to product management. This is how I am qualified for this job. Or usually there's a lots of company, they have the APM type of role, associate product manager type of role, which was designed for fresh graduate or someone with like a year of working experience, relative shorter amount of work experience. And those program are looking for somebody has leadership potential and with the right background, and also have demonstrated your like product vision, your product sense. So therefore doing some like project on the side is going to help you to get in. As a fresh graduate, I believe this is still one of the best jobs you guys should try. But totally, you need to try harder because this is the hottest jobs out there. But I pace out several examples, and hopefully you guys can follow the right path and become a PM.
But if we do not have a product manager experience, how can we maybe got a product manager job?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's why I asked you guys to work on your side project. You don't need to be hired to do any side project, which means when you go for those hackathon events and people can just pay $20 or maybe usually it's free to join. And then you can also work with a group of classmates together, say, hey, why don't we work on a startup idea together? Myself, I have like 50 different startup ideas. You guys can borrow my ideas anytime. Feel free to message me afterwards. And so maybe group of 5 students that we want to build a product that help parents to teach their kids easier at home during COVID, right? I think there's a need for such product today. So if a group of you guys, let's say 5 students, are interested in like building a product like this, and you can join a small team and said, okay, let's start doing customer interviews, competitive analysis, what do they want, and then you start to build some MVP, some MVP, minimum viable product. Usually you do not need the engineer to build a real product for you. You can just draw some papers or use other tools to demonstrate this is how it's going to help mom to teach daughters or kids at home, right? And so that's the right experience. Anybody can start their own startup experience and validate their ideas very easily. So that's how you gain the PM experience.
I saw another question in the chatting room. It says the recruitment of product manager in the domestic market has been greatly reduced this year. So how can I effectively improve my personal competitiveness?
Yes. Great question. And I talk about it in, let me pin myself quickly. I talk about it in one of my webinars 2 weeks ago. You guys should sign up for the future webinars about how I got 4 offers during COVID. Myself also like did job hunting during COVID. I got 4 product manager offers. 3 of those are direct to product offer, right? So during this experience, it is very true that 50% of jobs are gone. I talk about it in my webinar. It is true there are fewer jobs out there. So whenever you see things like 50% of job is gone, which means if you're bottom 50%, it's harder for you to get a job. But if the top 50%, you still be able to get a job. Just the bottom ones are eliminated. So therefore, during COVID, when you can focus on how can I become the top 1% candidate, how can I become the top 50% candidate, right? So that's where you need to focus on first and improve yourself and using the right strategy to get a job. The second part is how during this process are you using the most effective strategy in terms of networking strategy. So I do not recommend people to apply for jobs online during COVID. You can't do that. I have somebody reach out to me. He said he applied for 700 jobs online and he got 7 interviews. And imagine that if you got rejected 600 times, more than 600 times by applying online, it's going to hurt your confidence significantly, right? So during COVID, do not apply online, or you apply only after you already found like a referral and someone would love to sponsor you and help you to get into the company through networking. The second part, very important. And the third part is focus on the right industries and right company. As we all know, for example, like all the travel industry, Uber, Lyft, they like laid off lots of people. It's normal. It's going on. What's going on with a company? So, but education companies, they're growing 10 times. I talked to a CEO of a startup. His company was growing ridiculously fast during COVID because everybody is doing online. It's like we are doing this online like coaching as well, right? So those education company grew very, very quickly. So I would focus on laser like targeting at the right industry and right company who are growing during COVID and not being impacted during COVID. That's where we need to focus on when you think about the 50% of the jobs that taken during COVID.
Is there any recommendations for book or classes about reading PPL or stuff like that in general?
Oh, yes. There are several books that I recommend reading. Code and Conquer. And I think this is written by a guy called Louis Lin. And he invented a methodological circle framework that helps you to answer product manager interview questions in terms of product sense questions. And those product sense questions will say, let's design an app for a hotel. Something very broad, right? How would you answer those questions? And his book actually talks about using the right framework to answer those type of questions. And there's also another book called Ace Product Manager Interview Book. You guys can read it, which talks about how like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, different companies, how they recruit, how they hire, and what the difference is. Those are the entry-level books and people can warm up and learn about it. And there's also some kind of product management blogs. Is a guy called Andrew Chen, and he's the investor of A16Z, and he writes blogs about product management, but he's mainly focused on the growth product and how can you drive very quick user adoptions, how to use the right methodology. And for those like B2C product, you can read his blog post for free on his website, Andrew Chan, and just Google his name, is going to come up. And those are the entry level books and free resources you guys can warm up and learn about product management.
if we are developing a website or an application, so what do we have to know about the technology or like something like coding in order to cooperate with them better?
Are you saying, do you need to learn technology, or what technology do you need to learn?
Do we need to I mean maybe like how will we need to know about it?
How do you learn technology to be a better PM? Is that what your question? Is that your question?
About the depthness, the depths about yeah, maybe how many things we need to know.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me recap this question. Regarding technical perspective, how many different things we need to know to become a PM or even doing the PM work? To answer this question, there's several things. What I recommend everyone is that learn something fundamental about like software architecture, a cloud architecture. There is a free LinkedIn course. I posted on my LinkedIn feed. You guys can go check it out. And basically, it's a 2 hours course. Give you something very, very high level definition of software architecture and cloud architecture, what people need to think about and when they deploy software and basically run the software in the test environment, maybe run in the cloud, and things they need to consider. And those software architecture fundamental background is essential for everybody being able to speak to the engineers when you start to work, and also will help you to do well in your interview, because some of the interview questions they ask you is relevant, very relevant to if you know what are the different key components of building a software product, what the different like component go into it, and how would you think about it. So knowing the software architecture is very critical. And yeah, guys, do check out this that very, very basic course for free on LinkedIn. And I can feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I can send you this course as well. And the second part regarding the software you guys need to know or should understand is it's more towards the basic algorithm. For you don't need to learn how to code. It's all business, super easy business logic. And for example, how to, for example, if I give you a word of 10 words, 10 digit, like 10 numbers, sorry. If I give you 10 numbers and find the biggest, the highest number in those 10 numbers, all 10 numbers are random, right? Things like this, what is the business logic among it, right? And in this process, something very quick is that usually you will pick number one number and compare with number two. If number one is bigger and number one is the biggest, then compare the biggest one with the third one. If this whatever is bigger, they become the biggest one. Then compare this one with the fourth one. Then eventually you can get the biggest number within the 10 numbers of array, right? So those very high level, the algorithm business logic, I recommend people to warm up to learn about this. And the way you can learn it is called Lead Code. There's a website called Lead Code, and it's free. And most of things are free. 50% of the questions, they are free. You can read those very easy level questions on Lead Code to roughly understand, okay, how to pick the smallest number of the 10 numbers, or highest or second highest number, things like that. So you start to think about how things work. But the other part, I think that's the main two things: software architecture and very basic business logic, to be able to do your job better. The third thing I recommend is, for example, if you interview at a self-driving car company, the special niche product, and I recommend you to read about like self-driving car, how to make self-driving cars safer, what's a key consideration need to go into self-driving car, right? So those things is not technical, it's more thinking about from a high level, what are the pain points for customers when you build self-driving car, and how can you solve the problems for self-driving cars ahead of time. And you don't need to go into technical details, it's more business logic. To make self-driving cars safer, we need to test out in Arizona, and the number of people or getting injured in those accidents need to be zero, or those high level components regarding how can you make self-driving cars safer, and read more about this. What are 5 levels of the safety for self-driving cars? Those are fundamental. So read more about how things work in each industry. So you don't need to go deeper than what I just mentioned. Did this help?
Yeah. So maybe we can move to the next question. It's about what's the path of a product manager.
Okay, great. Let me show this the question so that everyone can read it. Is towards what's the path to product management. The path to product management, I think I roughly answer this question is how to become a PM, right? Besides what I mentioned earlier, having the side project ready, you guys also need to work on your resume. And to be very, very frank, I refer people's resume to hiring managers. I have lots of friends who are hiring managers today. They just email me saying that, Nancy, do you know any good candidate? And only 10% of people who I pass resume to will be selected for an interview. It's not because I don't know the hiring managers, they are all my friends. It was because their resume wasn't a product management resume. So the path to product management need to begin with having the right PM resume, the kind of keywords we are looking for. And I have a YouTube video talk about how to write a PM resume, and you guys should check it out as well. The second part is resume, and the second part is build a side project. And the next part is the networking. I recommend everybody need to pick up your networking skills, even if you are still undergrad. This is a key fundamental skill set for the rest of your life. Will help you not only get a job, will also help you to get promoted as well.
So let's move on to the last question. If I want to be a product manager, what major should I take?
Great question. Let me share my screen. What major should I study to become a PM? This is the most asked questions, and I have specific answers for all of you guys. Let me show PM myself first. To become a PM, there's several things you need to study, and of course, certain majors will help you to get closer to product management. The major, what I think that relevant, there's several type of majors, and first of all is something called information systems. That's more towards understand how the software systems work, but you are not developers. Or information management, those kind of like specific majors will help you closer to product management because it is technology based. You don't need to code, but also help you guys to see things in a relatively high level. This first type of major. And second type of major is MBA, because several companies, if they do not need technical background, they will ask you to have MBA, because as a product manager, we need to set the product vision and lead a team. And being able to have this like MBA in hand is going to help you to show that you have the business side of things. And the third type of major, which is something myself went through. I went through a program at MIT called System Design and Management. This is more towards the engineering management type of major. Those again is focused on engineering and management. Any kind of combination is going to help. So I can send you guys the link to my to the program I went to myself. And the number four, the fourth one is you can do a double major, especially if you're undergrad. You can do a double major. One is computer science, software engineering. I would learn software engineering as either a minor or major. It's up to you. So learn something technical. Software engineering degree definitely help. And then on top of that, you also do a minor. Let's say you software engineering is a major, then you do a minor, which is business minor. Could be economics or entrepreneurship. So when you graduated, you have both. You have both the business side and also the engineering side. The combo is actually one of the best combo I recommend people to take. So something I want to remind all of you guys is that not all the company looking for technical background, and only company like Google, they want something very technical because they have software engineer to test you during the product manager interview. But Google only represent very smaller chunk of companies that require technical background. I have lots of students, they became a PM even at Amazon and other places. They don't have technical background, they get in. So what you need to do is, if you're able to select any major that's the combination, give you both engineering and management, I think the highest chance of you to get in. You don't need a computer science degree, but of course, if you can do two majors, do computer science as one, do business as the other. So it will increase your chance of success much higher.
So let's move on to the Q&A session, which is anyone can ask any question related to this. I just saw our question in the YouTube channel is about how to transition from product analysis to product manager. Maybe product management, yeah.
Say that question again.
How to transition from a product analyst to a product management?
Product analyst. Okay, great. Very good question. As a product analyst, you're more focused on analyzing the data and also customer feedback. The two things you need to do here. Step one is, I assume you're working for a company today, and internally you tell your team, your managers or other product manager, and tell them that I want to transition to a PM sometime in the future. I like to do something for free for you to help you out regarding product management. Then you start to basically do more requirement gathering and do sprint planning and writing requirements and maybe help with a product launch. That's step one you should do as a product analyst. And the step two is that as a product analyst, assuming you're not able to find somebody in the company that can give you the opportunity to do it, what you can do is you directly go outside your company to learn about the part you don't know. I assume you know the analyst type of things, but you do not know how to do product requirement, do roadmap. And I also assume that you haven't like doing the marketing type of work to launch a product, and you know what's missing, then it's easier. What you can do is you either go to school to learn about the part you are missing, which is more like the business side of things, or you can go ahead to, as I mentioned, do a side project and bring a group of people to start up startup and directly having people to work on things that you don't have. For example, you work group of people, someone lacking the engineering experience, and you have that person to work on it, but you work on how can we design the go-to-market strategy and how can you move on to the next level to like drive the customer adoption to your product. I also assume that as a product analyst, you have some customer insight experience as well. If you don't have, you need to join a team that allows you to do like customer interviews.
I saw another question asked by Lily. She said, do you recommend to study MBA right after graduating, or to work for several years and study MBA then?
Very good question. I recommend work for a few years and study MBA. The reason is that everybody's getting MBAs nowadays is a norm. It's no wonder it's no longer your competitive advantage anymore. It's a norm. Now, if it's a norm, it's more important you go to the top MBA schools. Go to HBS, Harvard Business School, or MIT, Salon, all those like Wharton, those top schools is going to make your MBA more important and stands out, and also opens more doors for you so that you have a stronger alumni network. But how can you get into MIT, Wharton, and those top schools, or HBS, right? You need really good work experience to put into your recommendation letter, and you get in those top schools. So therefore, I recommend everybody to work for a few years. In those few years, and focus on developing your skills and learning all the soft skills I mentioned earlier, and then do a kick-ass job and have someone to write a really good recommendation letter, and you have really great resume and portfolio that will get you into those top schools. And then after those top schools, it's way easier for you to get like into a Google, Facebook, and those are FANG companies. So work first. You do not need to rush. It takes time to get into the best of the best schools and best job as well. Of course, if you don't care, you say, oh, I just want to get a job, right? I want to get a job in a startup, whoever can hire me as a PM. Then you can do any type of MBA if you want. So it depends on what your goal is. But in general, I recommend people to gain a few years work experience before you become a like get an MBA in general.
Okay, so Dr. Nancy, I got a question as well.
Great. Can you show yourself in camera if you feel comfortable?
Oh, actually, my hair is like a bird nest right now because I'm ready to go to bed. So maybe it's not so
No,
convenient for me to open the camera.
it's okay. It's okay. Why don't I just ask questions here?
Yes, because I don't know much about progress manager, this kind of job, because I'm still a high school student. So, but I'm very passionate about my future job. So my question is PM a kind of job that needs lots of passion for all your career life, or just at your mid age, you're like officers, you're just sitting on your chair and you can see through your rest of the life, that kind of job.
I'm very impressed by your question because you start to think about the career satisfaction when you're in high school. I believe you can go really far, believe me.
Oh,
I
thank
wish
you.
I wish I think this far when I choose my career path. I didn't earlier. That's why it took me. That's why I became an engineer first. Then find my true passion to become a PM. The answer to your question is PM is type of job is people need to be very passionate about what they do. And one of the key requirement becoming a PM is you really love your product. Product is your baby, and you also enjoy leading a team of people and making decisions and taking them to the next level. And hopefully, lots of product managers eventually can start their own company. Lots of PM. This PM is a CEO of the product. And lots of my students, actually 70% of my students in the near term, they want to become a PM. In the long term, they want to become a CEO of their own company. So people who choose this PM path, they're very entrepreneurial. They're in general, they define them as a leader even before they get a job. So PM is definitely, if you just want to get paid and collect paycheck, PM is not the right job of type of career for you. But if you want something bigger, you're ambitious, you want some like uncapped potential, PM is definitely one of the best career you can ever choose. It leads to many different roles. It's very, very fun.
Oh, so actually product manager is a group of brilliant people, and you have so many challenges to take every day. So you need to keep your passionate heart and try to solve different kinds of hard problems in your daily life?
Yeah, it is. And in general, as the way you see this is product managers are truly the entrepreneur inside of companies. Think about if you want to start the next Apple company or Facebook, things like that. If you're the CEO of the company, what would you do? You are thinking about how can I bring the best people in my team? You're thinking about how can I work with so many different people to achieve a mission together? And of course, because the goal, the mission is really big, you will see lots of challenges and difficulties down the road, but this is very, very fun. This is definitely the most fun type of job I had. I will still choose this for the rest of my life. I still want to be a PM. So therefore, certain type of people they choose to be a PM just because the leadership potential and the new things you can learn. And the most important thing is you're solving problem for other people. You're not what I said on my resume on my YouTube videos all the time. I call that I help people transition from worker bee to product managers and business leader. So as a product manager, never behind the scenes and crunching data. So then people might take your credit, do other stuff. This is not you. So you're out front and figure out how can I solve the problem for my customer. I'm very passionate about solving problems and lead a team to execute. That's what a PM is.
Wow, it sounds very interesting. I love interesting jobs. Maybe I will put PM into one of my considerations in the future. Thanks for answering.
Very, very, very good. I think you planned so early. That's great. You will do well in the future.
Well, some plans, I think they should be earlier to consider.
Yeah.
Because that depends. Oh, my life depends on my future job.
True. Haroza, do you see more questions on the YouTube feed?
Because of the time limits, I think we can have the last question. So I saw it on YouTube. It's how big do references play in your ability to land an interview?
Significant. That's the single most important thing you need to do to get referrals. Significant. So as a hiring manager myself, I know how things work behind the scenes. That especially during COVID, even in Google, 70% of the jobs came from referrals. Whoever joined Google, 70% of them had referral. The other 30%, they might already super outstanding and recruiter reach out to you. For example, Google recruiters reach out to me twice. Every half of the year, they come to me. I didn't network with them. They found me on LinkedIn because my profile is really good. So I belong to the 30%. I don't need to network. They find me. They convince me to join Google. But the other 70%, if you want to join, you need to network. The reason is that as a recruiter, you probably receive 400 resumes. Just look up on LinkedIn, just Google those top jobs, and you probably have 400 people applying for the same job. Do you think recruiters will read all the 400 resumes? No. Recruiters will read the resumes based on first, did anybody pass their resume to the recruiter? So stand out of those 400, so gets her attention. And second is that recruiters probably use the software to do the keyword search, automatically hit the keywords on the resumes. And if there's some keywords being hit multiple times, your resume might be able to flow up on top of 400 resumes. But think about this, in order to successfully hit all the keywords, how many jobs do you need to apply? As I mentioned, someone applied for 700 jobs and he get like 7 jobs. So it's very hard for you to successfully know what they're looking for and hit the keywords just by applying jobs online. So therefore, I recommend everybody to hone your networking skills to get referral. I made a YouTube video about tell me yourself in 30 seconds. That's your first step in terms of getting a referral. You should be able to tell a very impressive story of yourself, and in the process of networking with other people and getting the referral.
Excuse me, Dr. Nancy, can I ask the last question?
Okay.
Okay, so you have previously answered the question about the how we cooperate with the developed team, but I'm currently processing a project, and I'm still a little bit struggling to cooperate with developed team, because we are also the students groups, and me somehow as a product manager, and I know the things about coding, but one communicated with those coders, we will have a lot of conflict, or they don't follow my plan, or my schedule. So do you have any special tips to such situation?
Yeah, totally. I like that you joined us because your PM already great. This is a very deep insight regarding how to work with developers and using the negotiation and influence strategy. When those things happen, you tell developers to work on something. They say, nah, we don't want to do it. They push back. The first step is, first of all, you need to have a realistic understanding regarding it is a realistic, or this is something else behind their mind, right? For example, you ask them to build a product. They said, we cannot do it until half a year later. Then you walked in saying, hey, I was a software developer before, or I talked to Dr. Nancy Lee or whoever in this industry, a feature like this only takes 2 weeks. Now you want to do 6 weeks. That doesn't make sense. You need to back it up with rational reasons behind why you need to do it. And the second part is emotion reason. So the many different reasons, there's emotions behind it. The several emotions drive people to say no, to push back, right? The first emotion, fear. Lots of people have fear, but people don't talk about fear. The fear could be, as a software developers, I fear that if I make the product fast, things might go wrong. This might impact my image, impact my promotions. Those are the fear behind it. So you need to understand what's the emotional reason behind it, right? Could also be someone, I don't know, someone who's lazy. Maybe depends on who they are. Maybe some software engineers, I don't know, they're like, oh, a little bit lazy. I want to do slow. I don't want to work too hard. So understand the second part is emotion reasons behind it. Then you use different strategy based on their emotions. And the third part is, I recommend you do homework ahead of time. I would build relationship with software developers ahead of time. So understand who are the decision makers in your whole group. For example, there will be lead software developer, right? The lead architect. I will build a relationship with him, take him out for coffee. Of course, during COVID, there's no coffee time. You do one-on-one with a person to ask about his background, where he's coming from. And when you talk to him, the most important question you need to ask is, how can I better serve you? Okay, it's not talk about, hey, where did you go for vacation? You have a beach time last weekend. So you can do that. So people do that, you warm up, right? It's very easy. You say about what happened during the weekend. It's easy to warm up. But when that special things happened, you need to ask him, so I want to learn about what you do, your team, how can I help you as a product manager? So you can get everything you want if you help them to get everything they want. Understand and build relationship ahead of time, even before they start to push back. Once you build the third step, the architect in the future will push back on behalf of you against his engineers in the future. So that's the 3 tips I recommend you to implement, and let me know how they go. You can comment directly on my videos for this replay for the live event, and I can check your comments, see how it goes as well.
Okay. Thank you for your advice. Thank you.
No problem. Which company do you work for, by the way?
Okay. I'm currently also a high school student. I'm like work with some of my partners, but we already got some like we get something like the investments from the initial investors, and we have published our application in the first beta, and we're gonna and now we are in the second stage to we're gonna publish like the somehow I guess the updated version, because we need like to because the first beta has a little market related problems. Yeah.
I see. Again, I'm very impressed. You guys are you're a high school student doing a startup on the side. You already implemented what I talked to you about side project. You also got funding. That's amazing.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, this project initially just started in the hackathon. Hackathon, and we thought that this idea is really valuable in the market, so we just continuously to carry out it.
Perfect. Exactly. You just implement it. Here's the example. Someone implemented my advice. He already got a hackathon and did his startup and getting fundings right now. So specifically, if you're running a startup, that's advice. Or the fourth piece of advice I want to give you is, if you have pushback from your engineering team, you need to take them to customer meetings. Original, what I told you was assuming I thought you work for big company like Microsoft. If you work for startup, besides apply the three things I told you, as a startup, you need to bring your developer teams to meet customers. They can be a fly on the wall when you talk to customers, or bring them into customer meetings. So they have the empathy for your customers. And then you ask him, what do you think the customer wants? As a startup, everybody's goal needs to be aligned. Now I assume you're CEO/PM or of the startup, right? Everybody goal needs to be aligned, or you cannot even launch a product or drive users. So he needs to understand whatever his code he's developing need to be used and solving problem for customers. And that's a pain point of customers. Let him feel this himself, because I assume your team is only 5 people up to 10 people. So it's very easy for him, to sit in the customer meetings and understand it. Even if he's a software developer, he understands it from the human level, why customer want it, what is empathy for customers. As a PM, actually this interview question, what's the top 3 capabilities that set you apart from other candidate? As a PM, one of my answer is customer empathy. I have deep understanding and heart goes to the customers. That's one of the reasons I love being a PM.
Yeah. Thank you for advice. Yeah. If you still have time, I would like to ask some follow-up questions, I guess.
Okay, yeah, feel free to ask one more.
Yeah. So the actual problems that we currently met with as high school students, we are have very limited time of especially our time investigating into developing a very well or very good performance application. So I'm a kind of struggling whether I should put more energy or time on my study or academics, or I may fully focus on this product. So it's like a decision or some decision making. Yeah.
Very good. We should continue to talk about this offline, and because the specifics goes into what type of school you go to, what do you want to do in the long run. We should talk offline. Feel free to email me. I'll give you my my email information. But in general, regarding time management, what you need to focus in the near term, long term, everyone needs to think about what's your final goal. Is your final goal is to do something amazing, that making a big impact. I will figure out how can I collaborate with your parents and your team members, continue with your startup, because the startup experience, you might be the next Steve Jobs or whoever, like Mark Zuckerberg.
Thank you.
You see what I'm saying? So if this is something in the long run, you want to make a big splash in the industry, I will continue with your startup, but you also need to at least get a B in your classes, right? So do some
that is of course.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
some prioritization and talk to your parents how to best manage this. But we can talk more. I'll give you my.
Yeah, I will connect you offline. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Very grateful.
We'll turn it back to Haroza, who is the host.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Justin, and thank you, Nancy. So because of the time limit, I think the Q&A section have to stop here. Yeah, and thank you for all of your patience.
Awesome, no problem. You brought really good audience. I was very impressed that most people here in high school thinking about the next job. That's awesome. I love to high school kids. All right, so great. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube video. I'm gonna post this in the link down below. I have more content, and feel free to send me more questions. I will turn them into YouTube videos as well. I wish all of you guys good luck, and please help me to, if you like my content, please help me to share and comment on my YouTube videos. I really appreciate, because more people discover my video, the bigger impact I can make. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good night, or if you're in China, or good morning. Cool. All right, see you guys. Bye.
Thank you. So maybe
how to, let me, hold on. I will put my contact here. Okay, cool. I'm going to end this, and thank you very much, Rosa.
thank you, Nancy.
All right, talk soon. I'm going to end this chat soon. Feel free to email me later on, guys. All right, see you guys. Bye.